Just to remind everyone, getting angry is a drug. People literally get high on getting angry. They get very angry if you ever say that a .22 long rifle firearm could be, under some circumstances, a good option for home defense. I recently threw something together for the magazine that you were gallivanting about with on the internet.
Oh, the
and
Charger.
I guess is yes.
Yeah.
So this past summer, I was at a range, public range, and they had a regular Ruger Charger, which is basically a 10-22 action in pistol form.
Mm-hmm.
Leaves the factory with no buttstock. This is a handgun. This is not a rifle, but it's got an 8 or a 10-inch barrel and a bipod and a pistol grip, and it's fun for all kinds of stuff.
I'm thinking ground squirrels.
Yeah, it's fun for that kind of thing. But I see this, it was a guy, and I don't know if it was a kid or his nephew or whatever. And the kid loads up a magazine, puts it in, and starts hip shooting it at this target. I was like, well, that's exactly what I would do if I was 12 years old. And, I probably just finished watching some movie with a Vietnam era M1 carbine advisor style. But it made me realize, like, that's not a terrible idea, because as a kid I loved the old M1 carbine. Who was it? There were a couple of companies that made them, called them Enforcers. It's the Patty Hearst gun, but it isn't the Patty Hearst gun. Before it was the Patty Hearst gun, it was Vietnam advisor gun, where it's often M2 carbine full auto, cut down to about big with a sling, and it was, in their context, it was more of a break contact weapon. Mm-hmm. Like, we have to get out of here right now. The fight is on. Hold that trigger down as you start to run, and et cetera. But the problem with hip firing the Charger was there's no sighting system now.
Yeah, we couldn't hit anything.
I don't think they leave the factory with sights, because there's a piece of rail on top. You're going to put an optic on it. So I start screwing around, and I start figuring out what we could do to make a Ruger Charger better for people who can't use other platforms. Mm-hmm. And whenever we do this, it becomes borderline insufferable, because, just to remind everyone, getting angry is a drug. People literally get high on getting angry, and they get very angry if you, a certain type of person at least, if you ever say that a .22 long rifle firearm could be, under some circumstances, a good option for home defense.
We're not saying it's the best.
Yeah, and we have said many times in the pages of CCM and in our videos, you will never see an American law enforcement officer suit up for a shift and holster a rimfire anything.
Right.
Period. The ammo is not reliable enough for duty use. We're not talking about duty use, though. I'd been keeping track over the decades of the problems, the specific problems I see people having in shooting. They can't hold their arms out for very long. Mm-hmm. They can't press a double action revolver trigger. They're elderly, or they have compromised hand strength.
Pounds, yeah.
Right. So I can't hold the gun out, so it's going to have to be in my lap. Well, that could take autos out of the picture for you, because that reciprocating slide, that could really cause problems. It could malfunction if it hits you as it's trying to reciprocate. But the revolver isn't necessarily a good fix either, because you're not strong enough to, if you can press that double action trigger, it's not going to be staying on target, because you're going to be putting everything that you have into it. Mm-hmm. So
let me move this one out of the way.
What we did, and that is an empty chamber and an empty magazine. Am I acting like what we did? You've seen this. Here's our.
I'm hitting the microphone. Everyone stop and calm down. Okay. Moving my chamomile tea out of the way.
Chamomile, you ready?
Yeah.
All right.
And reaching for the Charger firearm. I had so much fun with this. It was great fun to shoot. But as I was doing it, I realized, with this light and laser, and maybe I might put it on the side, maybe not directly on the top, that's open for debate. I could stand at 25 feet and put all 15 rounds on target almost as fast as I could pull the trigger. And I'm thinking, as a down the hallway home defense gun, or sitting in your chair and you got it next to you, or whatever, for someone who might be compromised, someone who might not have the ability to shoot other types of guns, this thing worked amazingly well.
There's a couple reasons I liked it so much. I'll take that so I can show some of these off. The reason that I wound up putting this up here was because one of the problems that I've noticed over the years for a lot of people who are of advanced age or they have hand problems is a difficulty in curling their hands around things, obviously. Right. So rather than having it here, it felt most natural if you put your hand up next to this to have it on the top. You could put it on the side. You can put it wherever you want. That's the fun part about this. This is a Charger takedown, and you need to buy the takedown if you want to put this Midwest Industries forend on it. This works with a regular out-of-the-box non-takedown Charger. You just end up putting the light laser unit back here on the top of the receiver. But if you want to be able to put a sling on it, which I think is a good idea for a lot of folks, a friend of mine who was in a chair for a few years, avid shooter, former gun shop employee, longtime instructor, one of the big issues is getting knocked out of the saddle. Like you that is not an option. And if you do get knocked out of your chair, you cannot get separated from your firearm. This is the pistol grips from the Ruger website, and we had to install that so we could install the QD sling swivel, QD up here, and this just goes around, hangs it right here in front of you. So you're not losing it if you do fall over. And as with any other home defense gun, so you can let go and it doesn't clatter down to the ground.
And that's where I was shooting it from out at the range, from the sling position.
And that,
as soon as I could find the red laser dot.
That's the other reason that I went with this rather than a different platform was you can keep this up against your body, down at your side, whatever, and fire because it's actuating here on the side. There's not a slide actuating back and forth. And I think we had some questions. Why didn't you do this with their 9mm carbines? Why didn't you do this, or the 9mm Charger, excuse me? And that is because of recoil and because of magazines. Magazines are one of those funny things when I'm helping people optimize their self-defense and their personal defense plans. When they say, I can't even load a damn magazine. That's rarely true. What they mean is they can't load all 15 rounds into that magazine.
Right.
So we have the same problem of, okay, you can't even load the magazine, but you can't run a double action revolver either. Like you don't have the hand strength to load a magazine. You don't have the hand strength to run that double action trigger, but you can load 4 or 5 rounds into that magazine, sometimes even 7 or 8. And some double stack mags, you and I know this, some of them, even with big, strong hands, they're a real bee to get those last 13th, 14th, and 15th rounds into. 10-22 mags are different, and they are not as difficult to load, and you can get an Uplula or any other device that you'd like for loading them. So, yeah, half to start a fight with the internet, and half out of earnestness, I put this together, and a lot of people have really enjoyed it.
And there has been some fighting on the internet.
On the internet?
Yeah.
How long has this been going on?
Well, it's one of those things that you don't often see, Ed, but it's out there, just insidious. And that first photo of this operation came, and people were arguing about whether or not that was truly a 15-round magazine, and the 10-round Ruger magazine just disappears when you put it. We're not lying to you on the internet. We're telling you what we built and what we got. And yeah, am I going to call this the perfect home defense weapon? No. But with a lot of people, there is a group of folks who could use this effectively, and it would be not only better than nothing, but highly effective. With 22 long rifle, you're putting 5 or 6 or 7 40 grain hypervelocity 22 rounds onto this bad guy. He's not going to stand around and argue with you about the caliber.
And you mentioned magazine, and that was one of the reasons, with all the other weird changes I made to this, I left it at the 15 that it shipped with. Seems like with as much as that's drooping out there, seems like it should hold more than that if the 10 round is flush, right?
Right.
Okay, well, the magazine release on these newer 1022 patterns is a lot easier than the old one.
Yeah.
And the 10 round magazine is flush fit, but the flush fit one is harder to take out if you have hand strength issues. The 25 round, or the BX25, sticks out another couple of inches, and now it starts to get ungainly. Now it's going through a hallway with an AK with a 30-round magazine.
Right.
Bump down to the 20. Get that tanker mag if you're going to be using an AK indoors, etc., as plenty of instructors will tell you. So this is optimized for persons with poor hand strength or who are otherwise physically compromised. And you post a picture, you're shooting it on the internet, and 90% of the comments will be 12 gauge buck. Like,
Right.
okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
congratulations. I understand that you like 12 gauge buck. That's not even kind of what we're talking about
Yeah.
right now.
I would never use that. I have
Right.
to have my, okay.
And good for them. Look, that's
Yeah.
part of the fun of this is, I think we've touched on this in videos before, a great deal of discourse, firearms discourse on the internet is arguing about baseball.
Right.
It is no different than, would 10 Williams be competitive in 2025? Everybody likes to argue about that with sports talk, call-in radio shows because it's zero consequence. And when you're arguing with a stranger on the internet about what they should use for home defense, neither of you have any skin in the game.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
they're-
you're not defending yourself.
Dude, you're
here.
never
Yeah.
going to be in the same room with this gun. It doesn't matter to you,
Yeah.
but it does because people get high on being mad and because they're bored. Look, they need something to do. As
Yeah.
my grandmother would have said, it keeps them out of the pool rooms. But
And I think they want to show the world that they're right and they know what they're talking about.
yeah, it's funny. We still get demands that somebody wants a call from our CEO. Somebody wants a call from you. Get that SOB on the phone. I want to talk. What they're demanding is that they be addressed as a peer. Like, sorry, man, he's
doing CEO
He's
stuff.
doing
Yeah.
CEO
He's-
stuff.
he's
You're not
got-
a CEO. You're not
Yeah.
getting on the phone with him. Sorry, man. I'm not giving you Kevin's phone number for you to be able to yell at him.
Thank you.
Well, I should say not anymore. Yeah. No, I was in the room for the last editorial phone call that will ever be taken by the editorial staff.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen again. But it is, arguing on the internet about guns is fun for a lot of people because it's zero consequence and it triggers the same stuff in their minds as arguing about sports.
Mm-hmm.
In Cuba, there are parks that are for men to go argue about baseball. That's how much humans like arguing. We really like doing it.
Yeah.
But it can be very easy to forget that not everyone is me. Nobody's me. Nobody's
Right.
you but you, right? And a lot of people, they're not going to be able to run the gun that you did.
Yeah.
And I think in this past July column, I said, look, I get it. You were running a 20 gauge shotgun when you were 6. Congratulations. You are demonstrably better than everyone else in the world of shotgunning. You are a 4'10", 88-pound woman who's an avid 3-gunner. You're rad. Congratulations. Nobody else is you, and they're not going to be. So sometimes, even though I don't use one of these for home or self-defense, sometimes you have to go with something else.
Yeah, we're building something for what ifs or for a very specific sequence of not just events, but qualifications and abilities. You can't, like you said, if someone can't pull the trigger, well, this gun is easy to charge, easy to load,
Yep.
easy to pull the trigger on, and deadly accurate at room distance ranges with multiple rounds. And you know what? Keep shooting until the threat stops. You got 15 in there. Go ahead and go for it. So, yeah, would it be my first choice? Nope. But if it is the choice that will protect me and the only one that I can use or the one I can use most effectively, then yes, we should put together items like this and tell people, yeah, it might be a good idea if you need something.
Well, and that's the other part that you want to pull the guy's head back up from the water to yell in his face. Look, man, if somebody is compromised to the point that all they can use is this for self-defense, guess who else wishes they could use something else? That person.
Yeah.
He wishes his hands still did what he told them to, like he did in the Marine Corps in 1950. But he's 90-some years old. He doesn't have his 35-year-old hands anymore.
Yep.
He has much older hands. So yes, everyone wishes that everybody could use an airstrike for self-defense if they're being attacked.
Yeah.
But we can't. You use what you can use.